Jeff Petry has been traded away from the Montreal Canadiens for the second time in his career to the Detroit Red Wings this time. The trade consists of Gustav Lindstrom and a conditional fourth-round pick heading to Montreal in exchange for Jeff Petry and 50% of his contract retained from what they got from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, just off the border of this trade, it may seem like they got Jeff Petry for a bag of peanuts, basically, and that's kind of what it is, but not to that extent. We'll be going over this trade in this video, as well as what it means for the Canadiens, what they might do going forward, if they may make another trade with what they got from the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I just wonder what you guys thought about this trade. No, I'm going to start off with you.
Well, I love it, but I think you can't really look at this trade. I think you got to go back to the Erik Karlsson trade. They kind of took on Jeff Petry they took on the responsibility to get rid of him, kind of deal. But to move out a guy like Mike Hoffman and Ryan Pitlick and get all those guys, a Legare, a Lindstrom. I don't know too much about Lindstrom. All those picks, Casey DeSmith. I think this is another Ken Hughes masterclass, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get rid of Jeff Petry for a second time, I think you can kind of celebrate that. I mean, as far as Montreal goes, I mean, we didn't really need him. We've got, especially with Lidstrom coming in now, he's a guy that can play in the NHL. He's a right-handed defenseman. That's another guy that you can put there. That I would rather have him than Jeff Petry right now, because Jeff Petry is just going to be a locker room cancer for those guys. Like some of the stuff he said after he left was kind of iffy. So we all knew it was going to happen. We all knew he was going to get traded again. Like, he wasn't going to start the season in Montreal. Obviously he had some issues there, but that's besides the point. With Detroit, as far as Detroit goes, I think that it has some high upside, considering that you're only paying $2.3 million for a guy that 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, was a very key player in Montreal's Stanley Cup Finals run. So it's a guy with experience. He's close to home now. He wants to be there, I assume. So, I think it's a decent trade for Detroit. And Montreal, I mean, like you said with the Erik Karlsson trade, we got a lot more than what we lost here. We got rid of guys that we wanted to get rid of. So, I mean, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, no, Nick, you're absolutely right about the point of getting Petry. Getting rid of him for a second time is absolutely a win. That's probably why the title is what you think it is. That's the main reason that this is a massive W for Montreal, because I think we all know that Jeff Petry was not going to play another game in Montreal in his career. Yeah. Especially even when they traded him, we kind of knew it's like, there's no way this guy's going to play another game for Montreal. This is just to be able to clear some cap, get rid of him, and get some return. But like I said, it's not the return that you would really want for Jeff Petry.
Yeah.
You probably could have gotten a bit more. But I think it was also the point where teams knew that Montreal was not going to let him play another game with the team.
Exactly.
So I know it's a different team than what it was when he was playing a very different team, but it's still, that don't make much of a difference compared to Montreal's standpoint. They didn't really want him at all for this this next tenure that they're going to go with. They're kind of moved on from that team now, and they're gone to the future.
I don't know. It kind of caught me off guard a little bit when it was like 50% retained for like a right shot defenseman. Like, the market for the right shot defenseman, how coveted they are these days. Now, I know, and also, like I said, at 50% retained, like, you're paying Jeff Petry $2.9 million, I think it is. Like, I think that's pretty, like, a good amount of money. Like, I really do.
Yeah, it's not a bad contract.
I think that they basically got so much retained. Like, Detroit got so much retained because they knew, like Kirk was saying, that nobody was gonna. Nobody was surprised when Montreal was going to get rid of Jeff Petry. Like, everyone knew he wasn't going to play there again. I think that's why Montreal retained so much, because everyone knew that they had to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah.
Now, Jeff Petry heading to the Detroit Red Wings just adds to the retirement home of the Montreal Canadiens' former defenseman to Detroit. But I got to say, this is a decent addition to the Detroit Red Wings defense. It adds to a right side, which right now, it's pretty big change from last year getting Justin Hall. Mo Sider obviously will be the first line center on that. Jeff Petry likely to be the second. It is adding to a defensive core that is getting better for a team that's kind of edging their way into the playoffs along with the Ottawa Senators. They're very close to that point of being able to be a confident playoff team that they would want to be. They may need to make a few more moves, but I think Jeff Petry adding that experience that he's had, especially going to the finals there a few years ago, to this young side is definitely something that they need, just even if it's for a short period, the 2 years left on his contract. I think it's going to be what you need. but as well as the return from Montreal, Gustav Lindstrom, I think, is going to be a very good, very good addition, I should say. He's played 4 years, not a full season with the Detroit Red Wings, but 4 seasons where he's been on on the roster for a little while. Mainly the last 2 years, he's been the big years that he's been there. But I think it's going to be a good addition to Montreal's defense, having someone who's been around the NHL for a little while, not as young as Montreal's defense is. He's still very young at 25 years old, but I do think this will be a good addition just to help the experience of the Montreal defense, because, they're moving into a younger phase of this defense now. I think it's going to be a bit of help. He's not obviously going to log any first-line minutes on defense, but I think he'll be a good addition. But what do you guys think about the addition of just a younger defenseman in exchange for, obviously, Jeff Petry, who is no longer going to be playing for the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, I think this just ups the pressure for guys like Justin Barron and Jonathan Kovacevic, those right-handed guys. Lindstrom's 24 years old, right? So he could very well come in and play. Like you said, he's played 4 years in the league. He very well could come in and log a bit of minutes. I think this just ups the pressure for guys like Justin Barron, Jonathan Kovacevic. They're going to have a guy like Lane Hudson, not like 10 out of 10 going to play after he comes out of Boston College next year. So, I mean, the defense core is looking pretty good in Montreal.
The fact that it's a right-handed defenseman also adds to it a little bit. Because a left-handed defenseman, and obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Reinbacher either, if he's going to stay over or if he's going to come over to Montreal. We don't know yet. So that's going to add the pressure for guys like that and like other young guys on the team that don't really have a guaranteed spot to try to work a little bit harder and get that spot. And probably to stay in the NHL, they're going to have to work a lot harder with this guy on their tail that's been on an NHL roster for a couple of years now.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are absolutely right. I like to know the point that you made where it could just be it's a bit of motivation for these younger guys knowing that someone else could just replace their spot. Someone who's been in the NHL a few years, probably not been on the best team, so I would say hasn't shown his true talent yet, but I think that will add pressure to these younger guys, just kind of motivate them, even if it's not to the point of him going to be playing. It's just to get these guys knowing that they might not make a spot that they probably once had. But at the end of the day, I do think this is a very big trade, a big win for Montreal, I should say. Might not seem like it just from the trade itself, obviously. Nothing here looks super eye-catching, I would say, but it is a massive, massive win because of what happened here. So I think that we could also maybe see a Casey DeSmith trade, whether it's Casey DeSmith, maybe Jake Allen. I think we'll see one of the goalies on the Canadiens roster move before the beginning of the season, just to be able to get a few more pieces in what they got in this trade. But I would say Montreal, apart from obviously the Pittsburgh Penguins receiving Erik Karlsson, I think that Montreal was probably the winner in this three-way trade, which they weren't even really involved in. So I think that is a very, very big point to make, and just something to keep in mind, that this trade may not look good on paper, but it's what led to this trade happening. What happened before that is being the big key to the Montreal Canadiens here going into next season and the future ahead, what they have, because it's something special. I think we've seen that not just in the Canadiens games the last few years, mainly some these younger guys like Caulfield and Suzuki, but what we're seeing from guys like Lane Hudson in the international game as well. These guys, you see highlights from them pretty much every week now. Montreal, they're superstars that they're going to have in the future. I think it's going to be something very exciting. But what do you guys think about this? These younger guys happening, like what they're doing before we finish this video off here.
Like you mean like Lane Hudson?
Yeah, like what do you think about these guys like coming in to the Montreal system of what this trade basically helps them with in the future?
Well, it represents the new wave, I mean,
absolutely.
With Montreal, they just went to the Cup final in 2021. They kind of shipped everybody out, and Shea Weber retired. Carey Price is never going to play again, and you bring in guys like Lane Hudson, Ryan Bacher. They got a pretty good prospect pool. Joshua Waugh, Owen Beck. Those guys coming up. I'm very excited to be a Montreal Canadiens fan, I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the defense, how young it is now, and David Savard, but other than David Savard and Matheson, how young it is, there's nobody left from that 2021 Stanley Cup team, and there's I think three or four forwards maybe left from that Stanley Cup final team. So, like you said, it's the new wave coming through, and I mean, I'm really excited personally for Hudson Reinbacher when that eventually happens. Because we discussed this at the draft, and I think everyone's been saying this, that Reinbacher is the perfect partner for a guy like Hudson to be able to showcase his offensive ability with David Reinbacher's stability on defense, his ability to move the puck up the ice and all that stuff. He's a very complete defenseman. I'm very excited to be a Habs fan right now.
Yeah, it's a very good time. Very quick turnaround, realistically, from the Stanley Cup playoffs, the finals a couple years ago. But from a big trade that they snuck in on to a small trade that they made today, I think there's going to be some more that we're going to have to look forward to before the beginning of this season. I think it's exciting to be a Montreal fan right now. Certainly not probably what you're going to hope for this year, but it's not going to be too long until we see this happen with the trades they're going to make following this big Erik Karlsson trade that Montreal snuck in on. But that is all we have for today's video. If you like it, make sure to give it a like. Also, make sure to comment and what you think about this trade. Let us know. We want to hear it. Like hearing from you guys, giving us input, hearing input from what you guys think teams might do. But that's all we got. Hope you liked the video. Make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.